Hey sports fans, Coach Nick here, and welcome to B-Ball Breakdown. We have a special NBA report today with lots of stuff going on, and with me is Michael Lee from the Washington Post, the Wizards beat writer, and today we're going to talk about Scott Skiles' dismissal and the situation in Sacramento with DeMarcus Cousins. Michael, how are you doing today?
Doing great, doing great.
Now, I take it you've heard the news, you see what's going on, and what's your take on a coach that was 500 in the playoff race getting dismissed in the middle of the season like that?
Well, I mean, I think that you kind of have a situation where maybe the vision of the team doesn't always match what the coach wants to do. I mean, if you look at Scott's track record, he's always tried to build his teams, that just totally defensive-minded and just focused on that end of the floor. But, once you make a trade for a guy like Monte Ellis, all of a sudden your team is taking on a different path because as much as Monte can get buckets, the other end of the floor has not really been one of his primary focal points since he's been in the league. And I just think you just have a team that doesn't really match the personality of the coach. And I think that sometimes, no matter what the record may say, if things just aren't right, sometimes you got to move on. And I think Skiles has done it before. I mean, he stepped down, I believe, in Phoenix before when the situation wasn't right. And I think this is, again, where, the team and the coach just wasn't a good fit.
I mean, it is a little bit of a pattern, it seems like, because Chicago was the same way. And we know that he's very tough, and I think he's a bit of a yeller, or certainly he's a guy who doesn't take any mess from anybody. And I wonder if a coach...
He wanted to fight Shaq, so that lets you know what he's all about.
That's right. So as a player, as a point guard, you like that, but perhaps in the 2013, having a guy like that, it might not fly. I mean, I know as a coach, it does kind of grate and get old, and certainly after if it's the same kind of style year in and year out. And so my question is, would you put Scott Skiles in that sort of PJ Carlesimo mold of style of coaching?
I probably would. Just one of those hard-nosed coaches that eventually that voice just gets lost on players. I mean, I think that's the one thing about Skiles is that that once you get him, he's going to turn it around pretty quickly. But probably just as quickly as he turns it around, everyone's going to start tuning him out. And I think that's kind of what happened with Milwaukee. It's like, he was able to take them as far as he could, and then after a while, it's just like, all right, coach. And then I think you just know it's time to move on to something else. But I think he set a pretty decent foundation, and I think he helped guys like Brandon Jennings and, really start to make a name for himself in this league. And I think they'll benefit from having a guy like that in their early in their careers.
Yeah, I mean, it was funny. I was talking to my players yesterday about it, and the notion of playing hard and really concentrating and focusing has to come from them. They need to want to do it. If I have to be on them every single day to do it, they'll do it up until that certain point, and then if, let's say, I don't do it that one day, they're not going to do it. And so I think it's a difficult situation, and certainly a guy like PJ Carlesimo is another good example of he had his shot. He had a couple jobs in a row where he tried to get it to work, and after it didn't happen that second time, he went a long time before getting considered for a head coaching job, and those did not go well either. So I'm suspecting that Scott Skiles might have to go into the wilderness for a little while before he even gets another shot at a head coaching job.
I probably would agree with you on that. I think that, when there's a certain pattern, of how things end, and I think this is kind of what's happened in his previous two stops. So I'm not sure if anybody wants that, but I think, again, if you look at a guy like even a Fratello or somebody, eventually somebody's going to take a chance on it. May take a while, but eventually somebody will, because they'll know that if what I need to do is just get my team over the hump and become a playoff team and start being competitive and, establish a style of play, then, maybe I'll go with a guy like Skiles. Because if you look at the Bulls and look at what they are right now, I mean, Thibodeau has done a great job of making that one of the most toughest defensive-minded teams in the league. But a lot of those guys got their start with Skiles there, and with Skiles kind of creating that whole mentality before he even arrived. So it was already ingrained.
I would argue that Scott Skiles' offensive, he is as limited offensively as Mike D'Antoni is defensively. And
yeah. I mean, I think when you have the weapons that he was given, that team should be a lot more explosive offensively. When you got a backcourt like Jennings and Ellis, those guys should be lighting up teams.
Right.
I would probably.
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
And certainly back in Chicago when I was watching him when Kirk was there originally, what was frustrating to me was that the offense was designed to make Kirk Heinrich get these double pump, hanging in the air off the glass and over 2 7-footers. That's the shot they were supposed to get. And it was very frustrating to watch that because they would grit out the win 88 to 87. But in this league, if you can't generate shots that your teams can make consistently, then that's going to hold you back as well. And I think it's an interesting dichotomy where perhaps him and D'Antoni should somehow share duties and they'd have a great team.
Yeah, that's true because, I mean, he could never really find a way to turn Tyson Chandler into any kind of offensive weapon, and it didn't happen until he got with Chris Paul, and I think that's one of the things I think Milwaukee kind of had to look at too, is that we have a lot of young guys who have ability and just not really taking off for them just yet.
Well, let's shift gears and talk a little bit about DeMarcus Cousins because the NBA is abuzz right now about him and these three-team deals. But then you keep hearing that Sacramento says he's not on the table. So what are you hearing, and what do you think about that situation?
I mean, everyone I talk to, I talk to people in Sacramento, they all say he's not available, but I also know people close to DeMarcus who say that Sacramento's saying that, but this would be the best time to really try to make a push for him because, things right now are a little sour there. And I think that, both sides are a little fed up with the way things are going. And DeMarcus is a really highly competitive guy. He wants to win. And I think that, his third year in, he's not really handling the fact that they're in the same situation they've been in since he arrived. And I think that some guys can deal with it better than most. But I think they knew when they drafted him that he was going to be a temperamental guy. But I think this year you expect somebody to mature, maybe grow. But I think a lot of people look at DeMarcus and say, well, he should grow up. Well, his team hasn't grown either. There's a lot of things that, you would expect some growth from him, but I think he's expecting some growth from the team. And in the third year to still be going through these same, it feels like you're watching the same team every year. I don't know what changes have really occurred with that franchise, and then with all the uncertainty surrounding, the Malus and the direction the franchise is going in Sacramento. I mean, that's got to be hard for a kid to kind of arrive with a team that seems to be dysfunctional from top to bottom, and then all of a sudden it's a lot of pressure on him to be the savior, and he's just not mature enough to handle it, and there's no one there to really offer the sort of mentorship or just guidance there. And I think that's really what's happening now, is that there's nobody there that can really help him through. I mean, Keith Smart was an assistant before becoming a coach, and I think they had a good relationship because he was that assistant who could say, hey, come here and let me show you what's going on. And now that he's the head coach, he can't go around kind of babysitting DeMarcus. He's got to be the coach of the whole team. And I think now you're starting to see that little splinter occurring because just the whole dynamic of their relationship has changed.
It's funny. I was in Vegas in 2010 when he was a rookie in the summer league, and they were really high on him. And Pete Carril was there, who I spent a lot of time with, talking with, and he was so high on the guy. He had all otherworldly talent. He could pass, he could post, he could put the ball on the floor. Perfect for the Princeton high post stuff they wanted to do. I didn't speak to him directly, but I was in his presence quite a bit, and just observing him. He seemed like a humble, quiet kid who was there to work, and I can't understand, what it keeps coming out that he's a problem, but to me, I haven't really heard the specifics. Is he literally just screaming at teammates in their face? Is he literally just sort of not running up and down the court, giving up? I mean, can you give me a little insight into what specifically he's doing that's so egregious?
Well, I've spoken to DeMarcus a lot, primarily because, he and John Wall are really good friends, and they've known each other, obviously, since their Kentucky days. And every time I've have a conversation with him, I mean, he is a pretty humble guy. I mean, he's a Southern, Alabama kid who just, likes simple life. And I think but there is always, there seems to be an internal struggle between that simple Southern kid and this other guy who just has this super intense rage, on the floor that, and he wants to just compete and win, and just he's a physical guy, he's a competitive guy, but he's also a sensitive guy in the sense that if things don't go the way he wants them to, he doesn't know how to really handle that, and he can't express it without, making these outbursts. And I think that if he's in a more stable environment and he's in a winning environment, I think you'll see these incidents become, they'll be much more rare. But I think if you're in an unstable situation where you're constantly losing, then these outbursts will continue. And I think that's why it might be a good time for Sacramento to consider moving. He's so cheap, and he gives you such great production under that rookie contract that you kind of can see why they're in a tough situation where they kind of like, where are we going to find a guy who can give us this kind of production at this price? And, how much do you want to put up with these outbursts? And I think the pressure should really be on the teams. If they want to have DeMarcus Cousins as a member of the Kings, they got to do a job of really trying to put together. Hey.
I'll edit that out. Great. Oh yes. So to get back to that point, okay. So let me just ask you this: what is there a deal that you see that might happen? Is there anything that's piqued your interest and said, "Oh, that actually sounds reasonable"?
I really don't know. I think I can think of situations that would seem attractive. I don't know if there's actually a trade. I think that a team like Boston, which has been rumored, for a while, would seem to be probably an ideal situation because you have a coach in Doc Rivers who's going to command respect. You got something established with Danny Ainge. You got a Kevin Garnett there. You got veteran guys who aren't going to put up with any kind of nonsense. And Doc has dealt with every kind of character you can imagine, Tony Allen, Big Baby Davis, and just everybody, Kevin Garnett, you name it, he's dealt with that kind of, Rajon Rondo, he's dealt with a lot of, interesting characters, and he's been able to make it work. And I think that if you put a guy like Cousins with a coach like him and a system like him and just kind of let him go to work and let him feel some success, because I think that, when you're a young kid, I don't think a lot of people really take consideration that this guy came 1 year out of college, and there's been a lot of pressure on him to be whatever they want him to be. And when it's not happening for you, you're not winning, and all that pressure comes down on you. Not everybody just has that kind of internal strength and maturity to really deal with it, in a professional manner.
So he lashes out. He's yelling at his teammates, yelling at the coach. This is sort of what the issue is, right?
Yeah. That's really what the issue is, and I think he's graded on a lot of his teammates with some of his behavior, some of his antics, because I think that he has his moves too. When he's in good spirits, you want to be around him because he's laughing, he's joking, he's a great guy to be around. But when he goes into one of those moods, you don't want to be anywhere near him. And I think that that's sort of a thing. It's like you don't know which DeMarcus you're going to get. But when he's good DeMarcus, you want to be around the guy.
Well, speaking about being around a guy, let's wrap up with, have you ever seen anything like Carmelo Anthony going to wait at the visitor's bus for KG to have some sort of confrontation? Have you ever heard that before?
No. I have heard of guys, waiting in the tunnel for confrontations, but I think last time I think Rasheed Wallace was waiting for the officials to come down so he could curse him out when he was in Portland. But I'm sure, I'm trying to think of all the player incidents where guys have waited to confront each other in the hallways. I think this year, wasn't there an incident with Zach Randolph and Kendrick Perkins in Oklahoma City where, they kind of had a little tussle, in the halls. But, for whatever happened on the floor KG must have really crossed the line with what he had to say. I know there are rumors about what was said. And
wait, what? I didn't hear any rumor. Can you let us know what the rumor is?
Well, on the internet, I haven't called or checked or anything, got any validated, but everyone on the internet is saying that Garnett made some comments about Carmelo's wife, and I think that if that's the case, then I could see why he wanted to address that, because there are certain levels of trash talk, and I think that when you cross certain lines, then you should expect it to go a little beyond the basketball court. And I think that whatever happened, it went beyond just an elbow to the side. I think that something was said that pushed Carmelo to the edge, because that's out of character for him. I never know him to just want to handle things like that in front of the team. But if something goes to the point where you talk about family members or loved ones, then I think that's probably going to be handled on a much different level than just saying, okay, good game and go home.
Wow, it's funny because we know KG to say things like that. I think the Charlie Villanueva thing a few years ago was certainly line crossing to some degree, if you believe what he heard, what they said. So interesting stuff there for sure. I kind of wanted to see Rondo. He was in that because, by the way, you've heard of it, but you never see video. And then somebody happened to get video of it while he was waiting, and that was actually even more fascinating to see. And then Rondo walks in there, and that easily could have been explosive too. I was kind of surprised that they didn't get into it.
Well, I mean, again, I think that whatever issue Carmelo had was an issue he wanted to address directly with Kevin Garnett, and no one else really was going to matter in that instance, because you probably say whatever you need to do to say calm down, Carmelo, or whatever, but whatever was said to him, I don't think it's over either.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, we'll have to see how that plays out. Well, Michael, I really appreciate you coming on. I hope to have you back on again so we can stay up with the Wizards, because we certainly don't give them enough love over here at B-Ball Breakdown. And your insights have been great. So please come back again as soon as you can.
All right. Thanks for having me, man. It's been great.
God, have a great New Year, and we'll talk to you soon.
Same to you.
And don't forget, people, sports fans, at B-Ball Breakdown, we're not a channel. We're a conversation. You in? Are you in, Michael?
I'm all the way in.
All right.